Hey everyone, welcome to Keto and Crime. Welcome to a very cloudy evening. I'm coming to you later on May 23rd to go over what happened today, Wednesday, in the Daybell case. The lights in my office have gone out, the bulbs burn out, and I need to order the right kind of bulb. So that was a mistake and logistics on my part. So I only have my little ring light and the holiday tree, 𝗙𝗂𝗏𝗖𝗿𝗁 light. So I apologize for the really crummy lighting, but I figure most of you just listen to me anyway. So if you are new here, welcome. My name is Tracy. I do true crime, dark history, horror film reviews. I have covered the Chad Daybell, Lori Vallow case from the beginning. I have almost 200 videos about it on my channel. Please check those out. And I have covered both trials daily with quick summaries, as well as the Kyle Rittenhouse trial and a ton of other cases and playlists on my channel. I cover just about anything that could pique your interest if you're into the more macabre like I tend to be. So there you go. Pretty much yesterday or today, if you're watching this when it first drops on 24th, it is yesterday, but basically defense rested and the prosecution began calling their rebuttal witnesses. Again, because this is a death penalty case and the burden of proof lies with the state, they are allowed rebuttal witnesses after Pryor's attempting his defense to, poke holes in some of these charges. So they're allowed rebuttal to try to put those patches back on. So that's kind of where we are. So let's jump right into it. So the first witness called is a defense witness. It is Dr. 𝗟𝗏𝗏𝗏. He is a professor of anthropology at Chico State University, which I believe is somewhere in California. And he is the director of the Chico Human Identification Laboratory. Pretty much he is a burn specialist. He has testified in about 8 different trials, and he has reviewed all of the evidence surrounding the remains of Tylee Ryan. Basically, the gist of this, of Pryor's direct examination, is how long it takes bones to burn, how much of a fire it takes to burn, and also whether some of these bones were animal or human. So these are the doubts that Pryor's trying to throw up. Basically, he talks about how long it would take bones to burn, that it is possible to burn it, and going back to, again, that 2-hour frame between Chad's texts and Alex's, presence on the Daybell property on September 9th, 2019, that this it could be burned in 2 hours, but there's no way to determine that. And the amount of fire it would take to burn it would be, according to Dr. Bartlett, would be astronomical. In fact, 𝗥𝗲𝗹𝗁 on the state does object a couple of times to this line of questioning. Boyce finally settles it by saying, okay, as long as this is for education of how Dr. Bartlett arrived at these conclusions, that's okay, but you can't be saying, no, it would take more than 2 hours and the fire would be too high and everybody in the neighborhood would see it. So again, they go along. And also there's some doubt about whether or not some of the bones were animal or human. Basically, as you know, there was an anthropologist, a forensic anthropologist on site that separated animal from human. But again, this guy saying that there was some doubt in some of it and that a lot of Tylee's bones were missing. We already knew that. Probably most of that had been consumed by fire or disposed of in another manner. Also, Pryor wants to know, could Bartlett determine if Tylee was burned elsewhere and then brought there? He says there's no way that they could determine that, but Bartlett does say he believes that the body was burned in whole and then the remains were buried. So we're looking at the entire consumption of a body here, probably on the Daybell property. 𝗥𝗏𝗏𝗏, in cross-examination, pretty much asked Bartlett if he had a chance to look at Tylee's autopsy report. He did. He also reviewed all the FBI reports, and he has a professional relationship. He co-authored a textbook in forensic anthropology with Dr. Angie Christensen, one of the pathologists that did the autopsies of JJ and Tylee. He says that his findings are not really different than what Christensen found. 𝗥𝗲𝗹𝗃 then asks about whether Tylee could be burned in a 2-hour period. Bartlett reconfirms it's possible, but there would be many variables to consider, including wind, moisture, and just the amount of kindling and igniter that was used. He also said that he says it's still possible there are bones in the Daybell property. And I've been wondering about that because it just seems highly unlikely that the entire body could have been consumed. And the way that it also comes out that the blunt force trauma and chopping wounds that were on some of the bones makes me believe that either that was horrifically used in some sort of religious ceremony to beat the demon out of her because these people are crazy, or she was chopped up post-mortem. It's one of those two, and there seems to be some conflict there. So I don't even want to think about that, but it makes me wonder if there still remains of Tylee out there somewhere. And that Bartlett did say that a lot of the blunt force defects he found, he would say they were rendered at the time of death or perimortem, in the middle of death. So her jawbone had been fractured in 6 different places. So I think they tried to asphyxiate her the same as they did with the others, but she resisted. And I think they beat her. And then they probably chopped her up afterwards too. I think it's probably a combination of both, but I think they beat that poor girl until she submitted or until she died from the blunt force trauma. There were also some stabs and things that he says was really more of a, during burial kind of thing. But anyway, after the cross-examination, Pryor only has one follow-up question. And he said there is no specific way to determine where these traumas took place. And Bartlett said, yes, I can only tell you what supposedly caused it, how they were affected by burning, but I cannot tell you where she was killed and how she was transported, anything like that. So, and then Boyce asks, he is released, and then Boyce asks if he has another witness. There is about a 20-minute sidebar, and then the jury is cleared, and then the viewers kind of see that Boyce intends to rest. So, that Pryor intends to rest. So Boyce asks Chad Daybell, does he understand his rights concerning not to testify or not to testify? Daybell concludes that he does and that he has chosen not to testify. And Boyce assures him that in jury instructions, he will let them know that they cannot hold the fact that he chose to plead the fifth and remain silent against him. So then the jury is brought back in, and they actually, no, there's a short break, and then we come back live, and there is some argument about Detective Coulter Cannon, who was going to be the state's first rebuttal witness. Detective Cannon was the one that responded to, as you recall, the attempted shooting of Tammy Daybell. And basically there's quite a bit of argument, and it is determined that because of a fear that he has been further influenced by listening to, all the coverage of this case, even though he assures that he has not been listening to that they just fear he has been further swayed and might offer information that was not original to his original testimony. So he is barred from being retestifying. And so then finally the jury is allowed back in. They go over that Chad Daybell will not be testifying, and the defense originally does rest. And then they talk about how Daybell, that cannot be held against Chad Daybell remaining silent. And then we go into the rebuttal witnesses called by the state. So the first state's rebuttal witness that is called is Lisa Marie Jensen. She works at Sugar City at the Central Elementary School. She runs the Title I department and supervises all the paraprofessionals. At the school, she is the one that hired Emma Daybell and worked with Tammy Daybell at the school. She says, Jensen said she was friends and colleagues with Tammy. She saw Tammy at least a couple to three times a week doing her work, how she was the computer specialist. She ran the library, everything was organized, well placed, and if they had any issues with computers, Tammy was their girl that they went to because she was really good with them. She said she went back and forth a lot between the library and the computer lab because she oversaw both of them, and she did all of her duties and was always friendly and upbeat and appeared to be well healthy, and she strived to keep herself that way. She says that even if she wore dresses, she wore tennis shoes because she really wanted to get her Fitbit steps in, and she also participated in all the exercise classes. 𝗏𝗂𝗏 then asks if Tammy ever complained about feeling sick or unwell. Jensen says no. Tammy didn't miss work. She never seemed tired or exhausted and didn't appear winded. Then there's a short sidebar because Pryor attempted to object, saying that was hearsay, and then it is ruled that that wasn't hearsay, that was merely her observations. And then pretty much they have no further questions, and Pryor then begins to cross-examine Miss Jensen. He asked Jensen how often she had contact with Tammy. She said 2 to 3 days a week, and once a week would be more casual contact, and they would have a discussion. Pryor asked Jensen how often she came to sit down and have a meaningful talk with Tammy. They occasionally had lunch together, and Tammy often stopped into Jensen's classroom to talk with her and other women about book ideas or even just books they were reading in life. So then he asked if it's a small school. She said there are 15 teachers that are there as full-time regular teachers. Then there's herself, who supervises all the paraprofessionals and does some of the hiring and HR functions. There's the principal, the librarian, the PE teacher, who is part-time. Jensen said she has a closer relationship with Emma because she supervises Emma than she did with Tammy, but she still considered her a friend. Pryor asked Jensen if she thinks Tammy was an introvert. She said that she was a very friendly person. She felt comfortable in the school, and she seemed to be outgoing. People get confused about introvert versus extrovert. It has nothing to do with your ability to speak or move in public circles. Extroverts crave that and they need that in their daily life, whereas introverts can do it. And some of us, like myself, are very comfortable doing it, but we don't need it to charge us up. In fact, we get overcharged with it, and we need to draw back and kind of go back into our own little place and reboot, whereas extroverts need it to continue to have energy. Introverts can take it or leave it, but it can also be a drain if we get too much social interaction. So it doesn't mean that you're some weirdo over in a corner if you're an introvert. I think Pryor has no idea what those words actually mean. But anyway, so Pryor releases her. Wixom has no redirect. They call the next rebuttal witness, which is Jason McKay. I'm going to probably mispronounce this. 𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏, and then Lindsay Blake begins to question him. He goes by McKay, so we're going to call him McKay. McKay worked with Garth Daybell at the Haunted Mill attraction, and she questions him about the night of Tammy's death, October 19th, 2019. She also questions about how the haunted house was set up. Essentially, they were both worked in the haunt as actors, and that there was only a curtain separating them. So they would talk a lot during downtime, which you have a lot of. You have groups coming through, and one group went on, you're waiting for the next one, or it may be just a slow night. So he said he worked with Garth every night during October at the haunt, and that they had a lot of downtime. And then on the night that Tammy died, Garth missed the next night, but then came back in and basically told him that he found his mother blue, dead on the floor himself, that no one alerted him to it. He just went into the room and found him. This is a totally different story than he's told before. You know, the first time he heard a thump, and then his father knocked on the door and got him, and the other time his father came and got him, and that he had heard Chad snoring as he went past his parents' room about 1 a.m. So this is a totally different story that he told McKay the day after, which leads me to believe that these children are brainwashed and have been coached. But anyway, so pretty much Blake has nothing further, is very quick in and out. Pryor does examine him. He confirms the time that the haunted mill was open. He said they opened at 7:30 and would close at midnight, but they couldn't leave until the last customer left, which could be between 1 and 2 in the morning. The last 2 weeks of October, they worked every night, Monday through Saturday, and the first 2 weeks it was just weekends, so Friday and Saturday. McKay said he doesn't know the actual day Tammy died. He just knows that Garth was there and then gone for a day. Then he was back telling about how he found his mother's body. Pryor then asked about the statement that Garth found his mom dead and his dad wasn't home. And he said, I was at work. That's what he told me. Pryor has nothing further. And Blake then asked McKay how Garth appeared when he told him about finding his mom. He said he seemed sad, but something else seemed to be affecting him. McKay said he was clear in his statement, and that McKay even asked him to, you mean you found your mom? Like, McKay asked questions. And basically, the statement was totally different than the statements we've heard from Garth since then. So this is like 3 changes that Garth has made. The first one was his dad came and got him, then he heard a thump and his dad came and got him, and now the original statement was that he's the one that found his mother dead and his father wasn't even home. So, suspect. He is released, and then the next witness was a spicy one. I thought it was going to break out into fisticuffs between this witness and Pryor, but it's Fremont County Detective Sergeant Bruce Mattingly. He has pretty much worked with Detective 𝗂𝗂𝗏 on getting the report from Utah on Tammy Daybell's autopsy and giving that information to the children, mainly through 𝗓𝗏. And so basically throughout the direct examination, they talk about how many times that both him and Detective 𝗂𝗂𝗏 attempted to get a hold of 𝗓𝗏, and when Detective Mattingly finally got a hold of 𝗓𝗏, they played the phone conversation, and basically he was basically trying to set a meeting with her to go over the autopsy reports. He told her kind of laughingly it had been a comedy of errors, and because they had all been trying to get in contact with her, and he's glad he's finally got to talk to him, and she basically does not want to hear about her mother's autopsy report in any way, shape, or form, and he tells them to reach out to her lawyer. They reach out to the lawyer of record that's no longer their lawyer. They attempt to get back in contact with 𝗓𝗏, and it's just very sus. 𝗓𝗏 obviously wanted nothing to do with knowing what killed her mother, and it appeared that the other children were going along with that. So they did attempt to reach out to Garth, Seth, and Leah, but basically the same results. None of them were interested. And they did ask if a copy of the report could be sent to one of their attorneys, and he said because the investigation is going on, they couldn't officially release the report, but they were willing to have them come in and sit down with either Mattingly or 𝗂𝗂𝗏 and go over the results. And then pretty much on the cross-exam, Pryor went after him about why they wouldn't release the results officially. And again, it was because of the investigation. And then he pretty much rattles him about, I bet you enjoy, this is what he was alluding to, I bet you enjoy giving these autopsy reports. You just call them and let them know what killed their loved one, and that's it. And Mattingly says, no. As you heard, we attempt to have them come in and meet with our team and go over the results. It's particularly if the official report cannot be released. We want to give them a heads up before the report is released about what they're going to hear in the official report. We also offer them brief counseling and other services through the prosecutor's office. They don't have to talk to a prosecutor, but we do offer them grief and other counseling sources through that office that can be provided free of charge. That's what we want to talk to them about. And every single autopsy report I have ever given is offered this way. If the investigation is closed and they just want the report, I'm willing to do that. But most of the time, I try to have a conversation like a human to these people and try to be as empathetic as possible. So they were getting pretty heated with each other. And finally, on redirect, Lindsay Blake pretty much rehashes the fact that this is how they give reports out to everyone. They offer to have them come in and actually go over and answer questions, especially if a report cannot be released. And then Mattingly is released from the stand. There is no further witnesses, so this is the end of Wednesday 23rd in the Chad Daybell case. They broke out right before lunch, and there is no court. There is no court on Friday the 24th today, so we're on Monday because it's Labor Day, so I will be back with you probably on Wednesday the 29th with what happened in the next available day of the Chad Daybell case. And until next time, 𝗙𝗂𝗀𝗃.